The chains of Zorik Prime. The air on Zorik Prime was thick with smoke and the stench of burning metal. The sprawling industrial city was a prison in all but name, a place where the weak were bought and sold like cattle. Lyra, a Zyverian with golden feline eyes, sat huddled in a rusted cage with 3 others, Talia, Sela, and Mira, each from a different world, yet all trapped in the same nightmare. They had been captured by the Gorvath Dominion, a warlike species that saw anything weaker than themselves as property. The auction house was crowded with slavers, mercenaries, and crime lords, all eager to bid on the latest shipment of slaves. Heavy iron doors sealed them in, and Gorvath enforcers, clad in battle armor, stood guard with plasma rifles. There was no escape. Lyra had given up hope days ago. Then, the doors exploded inward. A shockwave of fire and debris tore through the chamber, sending bodies flying. Through the smoke, a lone figure stepped forward, tall, armored, and carrying a plasma rifle that gleamed under the dim lights. The figure's armor was black and gray, scratched and dented from countless battles, with a single emblem on the chest, a faded earth flag. The Gorvath guards reacted first, raising their weapons. The intruder opened fire. In the span of seconds, precise bursts of plasma cut down the nearest slavers. The soldier moved with deadly efficiency, ducking behind cover, advancing between shots. The Gorvath were brutish and strong, but they lacked strategy, firing wildly while their enemy picked them off one by one. The captives watched in stunned silence. A human? Lyra had heard of their kind, but never met one. They were said to be weak, primitive, unremarkable, a minor species in the vast galactic hierarchy. And yet, this human was slaughtering Gorvath enforcers like they were nothing. A massive Gorvath commander, towering, muscle-bound, roared and charged. The human sidestepped effortlessly, drew a combat knife, and drove it into the alien's throat. The Gorvath collapsed, gurgling on its own blood. Silence followed. The slavers were dead. The human turned toward the cages, his rifle still smoking. He scanned the prisoners with piercing blue eyes beneath his cracked helmet. Then, he slung his weapon over his shoulder and approached the controls. With a metallic hiss, the cage door slid open. No one moved. "You're free," the human said, his voice calm, firm. Still, the girls hesitated. No one in the galaxy did anything for free. There was always a price. Lyra stepped forward cautiously. "Who are you?" The soldier glanced at her. "Sergeant Daniel Kane, Terran Expeditionary Corps." Talia, the blue-skinned Valtari, finally found her voice. "You're human. Why are you helping us?" Kane's expression hardened. Because it was the right thing to do. The answer stunned them. In a galaxy ruled by cruelty, such a sentiment was naive. Impossible. Mira, the insectoid, Vicarian, hissed skeptically. "And what do you want in return?" Kane wiped blood from his knife and sheathed it. "Nothing. But if we don't leave now, we'll all be dead in 10 minutes. Lyra looked around at the carnage, the bodies, the burning wreckage of their prison. She had never seen anyone fight like that. A single soldier had just done what entire worlds had failed to do, defy the Gorvath and win. The sound of distant alarms shattered her thoughts. Reinforcements were coming. Kane turned to the exit, checking his rifle. "You can stay here and wait for the next batch of slavers, or you can follow me. Your choice." Lyra looked at the others. There was no choice at all. "We're coming with you." Kane nodded once. Then, without another word, he led them into the shadows of the city. A soldier's code. The ruins of Zorik Prime's undercity were a maze of rusted walkways, flickerill, neon signs, and crumbling industrial tunnels. It stank of oil, smoke, and decay. A perfect place to disappear. Sergeant Daniel Kane led the way, his plasma rifle at the ready, moving like a predator through the dark. Behind him, Lyra, Talia, Sela, and Mira followed closely. They had escaped the auction house, but the city was crawling with Gorvath enforcers searching for them. Kane stopped at a darkened alley and motioned for them to stay low. He checked his scanner. 2 patrols nearby, but not closing in. For now, they were safe. The alien girls huddled in a corner, still catching their breath. Lyra wiped grime from her fur, her golden eyes flicking toward Kane. "You fought like a warlord back there," she said, voice cautious. "And yet, you freed us." "What?" Kane didn't look at her as he checked his ammo count. "Because slavery is wrong." Lyra frowned. "That's not an answer. In this galaxy, the strong rule the weak. No one fights for free." Talia, the blue-skinned Valtari, nodded in agreement. "Where we come from, kindness is usually a trap." Kane finally looked up, his piercing blue eyes scanning their faces. Their galaxy's broken. Silence. The wind howled through the ruins, rattling loose metal sheets. Mira, the insectoid, Zizikarian, clicked her mandibles. "Humans aren't strong like the Gorvath. You aren't as advanced as the Valtari. You aren't even as ruthless as the Varaxians. How did one of you do what no one else dared?" Kane sighed. "Because where I come from, we don't abandon people just because it's easier." Lyra narrowed her eyes. "And where is that? Earth? I've heard it's barely a footnote in the Galactic Registry." Kane smirked slightly. "Maybe, but we've got a habit of punching above our weight." Sela, the reptilian Varaxian, crossed her arms. "So what now, human? You killed a Gorvath commander. They'll send warships after us. You have a plan?" Kane nodded and pulled up a holographic map from his wrist device. A docking station, Hangar 47, was marked in red. "We steal a ship and get off this rock." Lyra scoffed. "You make it sound easy. That hangar is guarded by mercs and automated defenses." Kane grinned, but there was no humor in it. "Then it's a good thing I'm not easy to kill." A hard truth. They settled into a nearby, abandoned warehouse for the night. Kane sat by the entrance, rifle in his lap, watching the shadows. The girls huddled near a rusted furnace for warmth. For the first time in months, they weren't in chains. Lyra's mind was racing. This human, he confused her. She had seen warriors before. Slavers, warlords, mercenaries. But Kane was different. He had no pack, no army, no superior backing him. Yet he walked into a slave auction alone and tore it apart. He had no reason to do it, no reward waiting for him. Lyra studied him from a distance. His armor was battered. His left forearm bore a deep plasma burn, hastily wrapped. He was injured, but he never complained. She hesitated, then stood and walked over. "Your arm." "Let me see." Kane glanced up. "It's fine." She crossed her arms. "It's not." Kane exhaled, but relented, pulling off the makeshift bandage. The wound was bad, seared flesh, deep burn marks. Lyra knelt and pulled out a small med kit she had stolen from the auction house. She applied a cooling gel, her hand steady despite her racing heart. "You're not used to people helping you, are you?" she asked quietly. Kane chuckled. "No, not really." Lyra finished wrapping the bandage and met his gaze. "You don't owe us anything, but you're risking your life for us anyway." "Why?" Kane was quiet for a long moment. Finally, he said, "Because someone has to." And for the first time, Lyra felt something she hadn't in a long time. Hope. A new resolve. By morning, they were moving again. The city was waking up, but the Gorvath were still hunting them. Kane checked his weapon, looked at the group. "You all ready? Once we make a move on that hangar, there's no turning back." The alien girls exchanged glances. Mira clicked her mandibles. "I still don't trust you, human, but I trust that you can fight." Talia smirked. "I want to see what else you can do." Sela cracked her knuckles. "Let's steal a ship." Lyra just nodded. For the first time, she believed they had a chance. Kane chambered a round into his rifle. "Then let's get off this rock." And with that, they disappeared into the city, ready for war. Against all odds, the darkened streets of Zorik Prime pulsed with danger. Every alleyway, every rooftop could hide Gorvath enforcers hunting them. Sergeant Daniel Kane moved swiftly, leading Lyra, Talia, Sela, and Mira through the Undercity toward their only chance of escape, Hangar 47. Lyra's ears twitched as she scanned shadows. How much farther? Kane checked his wrist scanner. Half a click, but security will be tight. Sela, the reptilian Varaxian, scowled. "And your plan is?" Kane smirked. "Shoot anything that gets in the way." Talia, the blue-skinned Valtari, rolled her eyes. "Very tactical." Kane didn't argue. They didn't have time. Hangar 47 was controlled by Varric's syndicate, a group of mercenaries and smugglers who answered to the Gorvath. If they were spotted, the entire city would know. And Kane knew one thing: they would be spotted. The approach. The team reached a high-rise overlooking the hangar. From here, they had a clear view, a massive landing bay surrounded by guard towers, energy turrets, and syndicate mercenaries. In the center, their ticket to freedom, a Yauern-class freighter. Big, armored, and fast. Perfect for an escape. Mira, the insectoid Zikarian, peered down. This is suicide. Kane crouched beside her. Only if we mess up. Lyra watched him, still try to understand him. He was outnumbered, outgunned, and had no backup. And yet, he wasn't afraid. "What's the plan?" she asked. Kane pointed at the power station on the far side of the hangar. "We blow that. Lights go out. Talia hacks the doors. We rush the ship before reinforcements arrive." Sela cracked her knuckles. "Sounds simple." "It won't be." Kane loaded a fresh charge into his plasma rifle. "Move fast, shoot faster. No second chances." Lyra nodded. No turning back. The infiltration. They split into two teams. Kane and Lyra would plant charges at the power station. Talia, Sela, and Mira would get into position near the hangar doors. Kane and Lyra moved like ghosts, sneaking through maintenance tunnels toward the power station. Two syndicate guards stood outside board. Kane struck first. A silent shot to the head, one down. The second turned. Lyra pounced, her feline reflexes slashing his throat. Silent. Efficient. Kane glanced at her. "Nice work." She wiped her blade. "I learned fast." They planted explosives on the main power conduit. Charges set. Moving out. The assault. A moment later, the power station erupted in flames. The hangar plunged into darkness. Shouts. Sirens. Chaos. Talia and Mira hacked the doors, forcing them open. Sela took out a guard with a single crushing blow. Kane and Lyra sprinted across the open ground as gunfire erupted. "Move! Move!" Kane shouted. The mercenaries scrambled, firing blindly. Kane returned fire, dropping two before they could react. A turret whirred to life, tracking them. Mira, using her forearms, ripped open a control panel and overloaded the system. The turret sparked and died. Sela grabbed a mercenary by the throat and slammed him into a wall, his body crumpling. Talia reached the ship first, hacking the entry codes. "Almost there. Cover me." Then, the warlord arrived. The final fight. A massive Gorvath commander, Gorvath, stomped into the hangar. 10 feet tall, clad in heavy armor, wielding a dual-bladed plasma axe. He pointed at Kane. "You, human, you think you can steal from the Gorvath? You are nothing." Kane threw his rifle aside. "Come and prove it." Gorvath charged. Kane dodged, rolled, drew his combat knife. The Gorvath swung. Kane barely ducked in time. The axe sliced through steel. Lyra watched in horror. Kane was fast, but Gorvath was a monster. One wrong move, and he was dead. Kane exploited openings, knife slashes, rapid strikes. But Gorvath tanked every hit. Then Gorvath landed a blow. The Gorvath smashed Kane into a crate, denting his armor. He groaned but forced himself up. Gorvath laughed. "Pathetic. Humans die so easily." Kane spat blood. "Then kill me." Gorvath raised his axe, and Lyra struck. She leaped, blades flashing, and slashed Gorvath's exposed neck. He roared in pain, staggered. Kane lunged, driving his knife into the warlord's throat. Gorvath gurgled, fell to his knees, then collapsed. Dead. The escape. "Ship's ready," Talia shouted. Kane, breathing hard, grabbed his rifle and ran. The others followed. They stormed aboard the freighter, Mira sealing the doors behind them. "Punch it," Kane yelled. The ship lifted off, engines roaring, and shot into the sky just as Gorvath reinforcements arrived. They were free. As the stars stretched before them, Lyra turned to Kane. "You just took on an entire army." Kane smirked. "And won." She grinned for the first time in years. Maybe humans weren't weak after all. A soldier's promise. The Yauern-class freighter streaked through the void, its engines burning hot as it escaped Zorik Prime's gravity well. Behind them, Gorvath warships scrambled to respond, but by the time they mobilized, Kane and his team were already beyond pursuit. In the cockpit, Talia piloted with expert precision, her blue-skinned fingers dancing over the controls. "We're clear. Setting course for neutral space." Kane exhaled, slumping into the co-pilot's seat. His body ached from the fight with Gorvath, and his ribs were definitely bruised, if not cracked. But pain was a secondary concern. They were alive. He turned to look at the others. Lyra, Sela, Mira, and Talia. Only days ago, they had been slaves with no future. Now, they had taken their first step toward freedom. "We did it," Mira said, still sounding surprised. "No, you did it," Sela muttered, nodding toward Kane. "No army, no backup. Just one human against a warlord and an entire mercenary stronghold." Lyra, standing near the cockpit entrance, studied Kane carefully. She had seen warriors before, Gorvath brutes, cold-hearted mercenaries, warlords who ruled through fear. Kane wasn't like them. He was lethal, but controlled, ruthless, but not cruel. And he had fought not for power, not for money, but for them. "Why?" she asked. Kane glanced up. "Why what? Why go through all this for a bunch of aliens you don't know?" Talia nodded. "She has a point. No one risks their life like that without a reason." Kane was silent for a long moment. Then, with a tired sigh, he leaned forward, resting his forearms on his knees. "Because I've seen what happens when good people do nothing," he said finally. "And I refuse to be one of them." The room fell silent. A past revealed. Lyra stepped closer, sensing there was more to the story. "What happened to you?" Kane rubbed his hands together, as if trying to shake off old memories. "The Gorvath weren't the first slavers I've fought. Back on Earth, I was part of a military unit deployed to a colony world, Falcon's Reach." The way he said the name sent a chill through Lyra. She had heard of it. A Terran colony, wiped off the galactic map 10 years ago. Kane's voice was steady, but his eyes were distant. "We were supposed to protect the civilians. The slavers came anyway. They overwhelmed us, burned the cities, took the survivors. I lost too many." His fists clenched, "and I swore I wouldn't let it happen again." Lyra's chest tightened. She had assumed he was just some wandering soldier, fighting for the thrill of it. But this was personal. "You're carrying ghosts," she said softly. Kane met her gaze. "Aren't we all?" No one argued. A new path. The ship drifted through hyperspace, a temporary sanctuary. Sela leaned against the wall, arms crossed. "So what now?" "We just keep running." Kane shook his head. "We find somewhere safe. Then we figure out what comes next." Talia looked skeptical. "And then what?" "We're fugitives. The Gorvath don't forget." "Neither do I," Kane said. Mira clicked her mandibles. "You're talking about fighting them." Kane's eyes were cold steel. They conquer, they enslave. Someone needs to stop them." Silence again. The idea was insane. But then Lyra smirked. "And I suppose you think that someone is you?" Kane tilted his head. "Us." The room tensed. "Us," Talia repeated. Kane leaned forward. "You all saw what happened back there. We didn't just escape, we won. Together." Sela exhaled sharply. "We were lucky. Maybe. But we were also better." Kane looked at each of them in turn. "I know what you've been through. You've been beaten down, told you're weak. That your only value is as property." His voice hardened. "But that's a lie." He stood. "I can't change the past. But I can sure as hell fight for the future." Mira hissed. "You're serious? You want to take the fight to them?" Kane nodded. "I've spent my whole life fighting. I'd rather fight for something that matters." He gestured at the ship. "We have a freighter. Weapons. Skills. We could do more than just survive. We could start something." Talia snorted. "Like what? A rebellion? We're 5 people, Kane." He shrugged. "So we find more. Others who've lost everything. Others who want to fight back." Lyra felt something stir inside her. A feeling she had buried long ago. Hope. She glanced at the others. Sela was frowning, deep in thought. Mira was quiet, her mandibles twitching. Talia drummed her fingers against the console, considering. Finally, Lyra looked back at Kane. "If we do this, there's no turning back." Kane held her gaze. "There never was." A long pause. Then, slowly, Lyra smiled. "All right, Terran. Let's see if your crazy idea works. One by one, the others nodded. A soldier had freed them. Now they would fight.